"Kneel down or you'll die," said the queen. The man just smiled. Elias had never seen a city like this before. Even from the ship, the skyline of the Scifi capital seemed alive, shimmering in colors that no human eye had names for. Towers curved and twisted like the spines of ancient trees, their surfaces reflecting the strange, pulsing light of the twin suns above. The air hummed with a subtle vibration, as if the city itself was aware of every step he took. He adjusted the strap of his satchel, which contained nothing more dangerous than notes, data pads, and a small holographic projector. Weapons were useless here. In the Scifi Empire, power wasn't measured by guns or strength, but by intelligence, control, and influence. Humans had been warned about this. The Scifi did not tolerate weakness, and they did not forgive mistakes. Elias stepped down from the transport pod. The plaza before the palace was enormous. Alien citizens moved with a quiet grace, their limbs sometimes bending in ways that looked impossible. The architecture wasn't just built. It seemed to grow, spiraling upwards with natural elegance. Somewhere in the distance, he could see the Queen's palace, taller than any building he had ever seen. Its walls shimmered faintly, as if made of liquid metal, constantly changing color, as though the structure itself was alive. A Scifi attendant approached, a figure tall and elegant, with skin that reflected the light in soft waves like oil on water. "Elias of Earth," the attendant said in perfect common, the galactic trade language. "You are expected." "I'm ready," Elias replied, trying to keep his voice calm. The attendant nodded and led him through a series of corridors that seemed to defy logic. Gravity shifted subtly, and light bent around corners, making it impossible to tell where the floor ended and the walls began. Elias' stomach tightened. He had trained for negotiations, for diplomacy, and for patience, but nothing had prepared him for the presence of the Queen herself. Finally, they arrived at a set of enormous doors. The attendant paused. "Beyond this point is the Queen's court. You will speak when spoken to. Do not kneel unless instructed. Do not hesitate unless asked. Your fate may depend on it." Elias swallowed. He had read about the Queen in diplomatic briefings. Her name was spoken in awe and fear across half the galaxy. She was said to be brilliant, cunning, and merciless. Planets had surrendered at her command without a single shot fired. Yet here he was, a single human, standing at the threshold of her court. The doors opened, revealing a vast chamber bathed in light that seemed to have no source. At the far end, sitting on a throne that looked less like a chair and more like a living sculpture, was the Queen. Her eyes were not like human eyes. They were too large, too sharp, and glittered with a strange inner light. Her presence alone seemed to bend the air, commanding attention without a word. "Elias of Earth," she said. Her voice was soft but carried clearly across the enormous hall. "You have come far. Yet the galaxy is not kind to those who are foolish." Elias straightened. He had trained to remain calm under pressure, but the weight of her gaze made him feel as though he were standing in the center of a storm. "I am here to represent humanity," he said steadily, "and to ensure peace between our species." The Queen's lips curved slightly, not a smile, but a hint of amusement. "Peace," she repeated, "a curious choice of words given your species' reputation for stubbornness." The court stirred. Other Scifi dignitaries watched silently, their expressions impossible to read. Elias knew that any misstep, any sign of weakness, could mean the end of his mission, or worse, the end of him. Then she spoke the words he had been warned about. "Kneel, human, or you will die." The chamber seemed to hold its breath. The attendants froze mid-step. Even the humming of the building's energy seemed to pause. All eyes were on Elias. He looked at the Queen calmly. He could feel the tension, the silent demand that he obey. Many humans would have fallen to their knees instantly, begging for mercy. Many diplomats had done exactly that before him. Elias smiled, not out of disrespect, not out of fearlessness, but because he knew something the Queen did not yet understand. The court gasped. "Do you defy me?" the Queen asked, her voice now sharper, though still calm. "I do not kneel," Elias said. His voice was quiet but steady. "Not because I am fearless, but because there are other ways to show respect." A murmur ran through the hall. The attendants whispered among themselves, shocked. Even the Queen tilted her head slightly, intrigued. No human had ever dared such defiance. Yet here he stood, small and fragile in comparison to her power, yet unshaken. "Why smile, human?" she asked. "Because," Elias replied, "sometimes a smile opens doors that fear cannot." The Queen leaned forward slightly, her gaze narrowing. "Explain yourself." Elias took a slow breath. Your empire values intelligence and creativity. You measure worth by cunning, not by size. I am here to demonstrate that humans, despite our small number and fragile bodies, have a way of seeing problems differently. I can solve challenges that even the most brilliant of your species may find impossible. That is how humans deserve respect. Not by kneeling, but by showing what we can do. The queen's expression shifted imperceptibly. Elias had read about this in the history of her reign. The moment when she paused, truly considering a subject, was rare. Most either cowered or were destroyed. "And what if your demonstration fails?" she asked. "Then I will accept whatever judgment you deem necessary," Elias said honestly. "But if it succeeds, perhaps humanity can earn a place at your table, not as subjects, but as equals." The queen was silent for a long moment. Then she did something Elias did not expect. She smiled. A small, subtle smile, but a smile nonetheless. "Very well," she said. "You may attempt your demonstration, but know this, human, the puzzle I will present has confounded my species for centuries. If you fail, it will not be mercy that ends you." Elias nodded. Inside, he felt a thrill, not fear, but excitement. He had prepared for this moment, studied every alien artifact, learned every puzzle and riddle in the galactic archives. He knew that humans were underestimated across the stars. Here, in this chamber of impossible architecture and impossible authority, he had the chance to prove it. The attendants moved aside, revealing a device at the center of the chamber. It was an ancient machine, sleek and enigmatic, with shifting surfaces and floating components. Symbols rotated slowly above it, glowing in colors no human had words for. Even the queen looked slightly curious now, leaning back on her throne to watch. "This," she said, "is the puzzle of the ancients. Many have tried, all have failed. It cannot be activated, understood, or controlled, not by Scifi, not by any other species. Perhaps you will succeed, human, perhaps you will fail." Elias stepped forward. He looked at the machine and then back at the queen. His smile remained. He could feel the court's gaze burning into him, the tension thick enough to cut, but he did not flinch. "I will try," he said simply. And with that, the first step of humanity's boldest challenge began. Elias stood before the puzzle of the ancients, a device that seemed to defy every principle of physics and logic known to humans. Its surface shimmered like water under sunlight, and its parts rotated independently, moving in patterns that made no sense at first glance. Holographic symbols floated above it, their glow changing color every few seconds, as though the machine itself was alive, observing him. The court was silent. Every Scifi present leaned slightly forward, their attention fixed on him. Even the queen, perched in her living throne, watched with an intensity that made Elias' skin tingle. He was small, fragile human, and yet all eyes were on him. He took a deep breath and reminded himself of what he had learned in years of preparation. Humans had a strength no other species possessed: adaptability, creativity, the ability to see a problem not as a fixed obstacle, but as a puzzle waiting to be solved in unexpected ways. He stepped closer to the machine. Its floating components shifted and rotated, casting patterns of light on the chamber walls. Symbols moved across the holographic interface, forming sequences that seemed random to any observer. But Elias did not see chaos. He saw patterns, probabilities, and possibilities. He extended his hand cautiously, letting his fingers hover just above one of the glowing symbols. The machine reacted instantly. A soft hum began, and a segment of the device rotated slowly toward him. The symbols realigned, forming a sequence that seemed almost welcoming. "Interesting," Elias whispered to himself. The court murmured. Even the queen's eyebrows rose slightly. Humans were not supposed to understand such devices. The puzzle of the ancients had remained unsolved for centuries, and now this one tiny human was interacting with it as if it were a simple tool. Elias began to move methodically. He touched a symbol, then another, observing the way the machine responded. Each time he made a choice, the device shifted in subtle ways, providing feedback. Unlike the rigid machines humans had built, this one seemed to have a kind of intuition, a way of guiding those who approached it with thought rather than force. He thought of the principles humans had developed for understanding complex systems: trial and error, lateral thinking, pattern recognition. He combined them with something more uniquely human: imagination. He imagined how the machine might respond if he thought in terms it had never encountered before. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes, time seemed different in the queen's court. Elias did not notice. He was fully immersed in the interaction. The floating symbols began to arrange themselves into shapes he recognized. Mathematical patterns, fractals, sequences familiar from human logic puzzles. Each small success gave him confidence, and with confidence came new insights. The court watched in silence, but the tension grew. Scifi minds were sharp, faster than humans in calculation and data processing, yet they had never approached the machine this way. Humans, with their patience, curiosity, and unconventional thinking, were making progress where their superiors had failed. The queen spoke finally, her voice calm but edged with curiosity. "Human, your species has survived against overwhelming odds. You bend what is solid, see what is hidden. How do you do this?" Elias glanced up, a faint smile on his lips. "We do what we must, Your Majesty, and we never stop asking questions, even when the answer seems impossible." The queen tilted her head. "And yet your species is small. Fragile, your home world barely scratches the surface of the galaxy. How can you think yourselves capable of solving something even we could not?" Elias' eyes flicked back to the machine. "It is not size or strength that matters, it is perspective. We humans have learned to see the world differently, to find solutions where others see only walls. Sometimes the simplest approach is the most effective." The queen studied him. Elias could feel the weight of her gaze, but he did not waver. He returned to the puzzle. Now, with renewed clarity, he began combining human intuition with observation. He noticed the patterns were cyclical. Every few sequences, the machine repeated similar movements, but with slight variations. He smiled. "It's not random," he muttered. "It's iterative. It's learning from each attempt, just like us." The queen's court shifted. Learning? A machine designed by the ancients, reacting like a living being. None of the Scifi had thought to consider it this way. Elias, with his simple human insight, was seeing the truth. He began to test hypotheses systematically. If he adjusted one symbol, the machine's response created a ripple through the patterns. He followed the ripple, observing, adjusting, and adapting. Slowly, the puzzle began to align. The holographic symbols formed a coherent map, lines connecting points in ways that revealed a hidden structure. "This is it," Elias whispered. "It's not about forcing the machine, it's about guiding it, understanding its logic, and letting it teach you," the court gasped. The machine was reacting to a human touch, human creativity. Even the queen leaned forward slightly, the corners of her mouth twitching with something almost like admiration. Hours stretched into what felt like days. Elias worked steadily, carefully, never losing patience. He noticed subtle details, a symbol that pulsed differently depending on the angle, a component that shifted faster if approached with confidence. He began to see the machine as a partner, not an obstacle. Finally, with a gentle gesture, he completed the final sequence. The symbols aligned perfectly, forming a complex holographic pattern that hovered above the device. Then, slowly, the machine began to change. Segments that had been inert for centuries moved, rotated, and connected, forming a structure that floated above the court like a constellation made of living metal. The chamber erupted in quiet awe. The Scifi court whispered among themselves, eyes wide. This human, this small, fragile human, had done what no Scifi mind could. He had activated the puzzle of the ancients. Elias stepped back, breathing steadily, his smile calm. He looked toward the queen. "Your Majesty," he said, "I believe this puzzle was never meant to be broken by force or intellect alone. It required a new perspective, a way of seeing that your people may never have considered." The queen remained silent for a long moment. Then she rose slightly from her throne. "Remarkable," she said softly. "I have watched civilizations rise and fall, technologies advance and stagnate, but never have I seen a species approach such complexity with this grace." Elias nodded. "Humans are curious, adaptable, and persistent. We may be small, but we have a way of seeing the world differently. That is our strength." The queen's expression softened. "It seems your species is more than I imagined. Perhaps we have underestimated you." For the first time, a sense of warmth spread through the chamber. Not warmth of temperature, but of recognition. Humans, small and unassuming, had proven their value, not through weapons, not through dominance, but through cleverness, patience, and imagination. The queen gestured toward the machine. "Explain what you have learned, human. Show me why you were able to succeed where others failed." Elias stepped forward, pointing at the holographic projections. The puzzle is iterative. It responds not to strength but to understanding. Each action creates feedback. The key is not to control it but to observe, experiment, and adapt. Humans do this naturally. We learn from failure and we see patterns where others see chaos. That is why we succeeded. The court was silent again, but this time it was filled with respect, awe, and wonder. The queen leaned back, her eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Elias had not only solved the puzzle, he had demonstrated something far more profound, that humans, underestimated and overlooked, could achieve greatness through thought, creativity, and resilience. A ripple of energy pulsed from the machine. The room lit up as the holographic pattern stabilized, revealing a map of the galaxy, dotted with resources, trade routes, and hidden knowledge. Secrets long lost to the ancients were now visible. The court gasped again. This knowledge could change the balance of power across the stars. Elias smiled faintly. "This is just the beginning," he said. "Humans have always found ways to adapt, to learn, and to grow. If given a chance, we can contribute more than you might imagine." The queen's lips curved into a small, genuine smile. "Perhaps, human, you are exactly what the galaxy needs." The court erupted in quiet murmurs of astonishment. Elias had done more than solve a puzzle. He had opened doors that no one thought could be opened, shown that humans, in their simplicity and ingenuity, were capable of astonishing feats. For the first time in centuries, the queen saw a species not as weak, not as primitive, but as worthy of respect. And Elias, standing small but unshaken before the greatest ruler in the galaxy, smiled. He had done what humans did best. He had shown the power of perspective, patience, and creativity. Elias stood in the quiet of the court, his gaze fixed on the now-activated puzzle of the ancients. The holographic map hovering above the machine was alive with information, a web of knowledge that stretched across the galaxy. Trade routes, hidden resources, forgotten technologies, all illuminated with a brilliance no human had ever imagined. The court was silent, the Scifi dignitaries' usual composure replaced by awe and curiosity. The queen leaned forward slightly, her large, luminous eyes studying Elias. "You have succeeded, human," she said. "Yet success is not enough. You have revealed knowledge that my people have sought for centuries, but understanding it, that is another matter." Elias nodded, stepping closer to the holographic map. "I do not claim to understand everything," he said honestly. "But humans are skilled at finding patterns where others see chaos. We learn, adapt, and work together. This map is a network, a living system. Each part interacts with the others. It is not enough to see it. You must trace the connections, anticipate the reactions, and adapt as you go." The queen's gaze never wavered. She had seen many species attempt the puzzle, but none had approached it like this. The human's approach was methodical, patient, yet intuitive. It combined logic with creativity, a combination the Scifi rarely valued in isolation. "You speak of humans as if they are capable of understanding more than their limits suggest," she said. "And yet your species is small, fragile, and inexperienced. How can you claim such insight?" Elias smiled. "Small does not mean weak. Fragile does not mean incapable. Humans survive because we can think differently. We adapt, observe, and persist. Even when we fail, we learn. That is how we progress. That is why I can interact with this puzzle in ways others cannot." The queen regarded him silently for a moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, she tilted her head. "Perhaps your species has been underestimated." A Scifi advisor whispered to another, "He is but a human, yet he sees patterns where we cannot. It is remarkable." Elias turned back to the map. The puzzle had revealed much, but the most important aspect was not the data itself. It was the process. He began to trace the connections between stars, resource clusters, and ancient knowledge points. Each interaction seemed to spark new insights. He realized that the machine did not merely store information. It taught understanding, rewarding those who observed, adapted, and predicted. "This is why humans can succeed," Elias said softly, as if speaking more to himself than the court. "We don't just react, we interpret. We anticipate, we cooperate, we find solutions by seeing the whole picture, not just the parts." The queen's lips curved slightly. "And yet you are one of few. Most humans would not approach it like this." "I know," Elias admitted. "But those who do can change the outcome of history." He paused, considering his next steps. The machine was responsive, alive in a sense, but it required guidance. Elias began interacting with the nodes on the holographic map, testing connections, watching for reactions. The lines shifted, the clusters rearranged, and slowly patterns emerged that even the Scifi had not predicted. The court watched, fascinated. Humans were often underestimated, but this was beyond expectation. Ilia's calm demeanor, his patience, and his subtle humor, as he gestured, smiled, and muttered to himself, demonstrated a form of intelligence the Scifi had never valued, the ability to see potential, not just limitation. "This is remarkable," the Queen said finally. "Your species does not rely on brute intellect alone. You combine reasoning with intuition, observation with creativity. It is alien to us and yet effective." Ilias nodded. "We learn from what others overlook. That is the strength of humanity." As he worked, he began to notice the most subtle interactions. A shift in the color of a symbol, the way a floating component responded to his gestures, even the rhythm of the hum that seemed to emanate from the machine. These details guided his actions. Each adjustment brought the map closer to coherence. "You do not rush," the Queen said. "You observe, you consider, you adapt. That is why you succeed where others fail." "Yes," Ilias replied, "and humans do not give up easily. We may stumble, but we persist. We refine, we adjust, we try again. That is how we survive and how we thrive." The Scifi court murmured among themselves. This was not what they expected. They had anticipated fear, hesitation, perhaps even failure. Instead, they saw calm confidence, intelligence, and an approach they had never considered. Ilias traced the final connections on the map. The machine responded with a soft glow, signaling completion. The holographic network expanded, revealing hidden passages, lost trade routes, and forgotten technologies. Knowledge long considered unattainable now lay visible to all who could comprehend it. The Queen leaned back on her throne, her expression unreadable. "You have not only succeeded," she said softly, "you have taught a lesson about perspective, patience, and insight. Perhaps humans deserve more than I have previously allowed." Ilias allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. "We seek only understanding, Your Majesty." Respect comes from demonstrating capability, not from fear. The court seemed to hold its breath. The Queen regarded him, considering his words. She had ruled with absolute authority, but this human, small, fragile, and yet unshakable, was challenging not through defiance, but through intelligence and composure. "You have opened a door," the Queen said finally, "not just to knowledge, but to new understanding." "Tell me, human, what is it that you see now?" Ilias stepped closer, pointing to the network of lines connecting stars, resources, and knowledge clusters. "I see a system designed for growth, for adaptation, for cooperation. It is not static. It responds to interaction, learning as we do. If we work with it, we can unlock potential beyond imagination. That is why humans can contribute meaningfully to this galaxy. We see the whole picture, not just the parts. We can guide systems to outcomes no one else anticipates." The Queen studied him. For the first time in centuries, she saw a species not as weak, not as primitive, but as capable, insightful, and adaptable. Humans, underestimated by most, had demonstrated a unique form of intelligence that could shape the future. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "the galaxy is not ready for all that humans can offer, but it may be time to change that." Ilias nodded. "All we ask is the chance to prove ourselves. We can contribute, not with violence or conquest, but with thought, creativity, and cooperation." The Queen's expression softened. "Then you shall have the chance, human, but first you must guide us through the knowledge you have revealed. Teach us your perspective." Ilias smiled faintly, a quiet confidence radiating from him. He had not only solved the puzzle, but he had shown the court the value of human ingenuity, patience, and adaptability. The Queen's acknowledgement was more than a reward. It was the opening of a door for all of humanity. As he began to explain the intricate patterns of the machine, mapping out hidden resources, lost technologies, and ancient knowledge, the Scifi court listened attentively. Every gesture, every word demonstrated the subtle brilliance of human thought. And as the Queen watched him, her gaze softened, and a hint of a smile appeared. For the first time, she saw humans not as fragile beings, but as capable, creative, and worthy of respect. Ilias stood tall, small, but unshaken, and smiled. He had shown the galaxy that human perspective, ingenuity, and patience were forces to be reckoned with, even without weapons, armies, or domination. The puzzle of the ancients had not only revealed knowledge, it had revealed humanity's potential. And the Queen, for the first time, understood. The court was quiet. The holographic map still hovered above the puzzle of the ancients, casting a soft, multicolored glow across the chamber. The lines of light connecting stars, planets, and hidden resources pulsed gently, almost as if the machine itself were breathing. Elias stood at the center, calm and composed, yet inside, his mind raced with possibilities. He had solved the puzzle, revealed its hidden map, and demonstrated human ingenuity. But this was only the beginning. The map contained knowledge the Scifi had never fully understood, secrets of trade, navigation, resource management, and energy systems lost for centuries. Humanity could guide the galaxy in ways the Scifi had not imagined. But the key was not to show dominance, it was to reveal potential, to inspire trust and cooperation. Elias turned to the Queen. "Your Majesty," he began, "the map is more than just a collection of resources. It is a system, a network. If used wisely, it can connect civilizations, unlock lost knowledge, and guide the growth of the galaxy." The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "And you believe humans can help us navigate this system?" "I do," Elias replied. "Not because we are stronger or faster or more advanced, but because we see patterns where others do not. We can anticipate interactions, adapt to changes, and find solutions in unexpected ways. That is our strength." The Queen leaned forward, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "Show me." Elias nodded and began to manipulate the holographic map. He traced lines between planets, highlighting trade routes, resource hubs, and areas of untapped potential. As he worked, he explained his reasoning, demonstrating how small adjustments could optimize energy distribution, improve communication between systems, and enhance cooperation across species. The court watched in awe. The Scifi were brilliant, but Elias approached the network with a perspective they had never considered. He combined observation, intuition, and creativity, thinking not just about efficiency, but about relationships, trust, and adaptability. "Observe," Elias said, pointing to a cluster of planets in a previously neglected sector. "These worlds have resources the galaxy overlooks. They are connected in ways that allow for rapid exchange and cooperation. Humans have learned to thrive in similar conditions on Earth. We can guide interactions here, ensuring stability and growth." The Queen tilted her head. "And this will not be dangerous. You speak of networks, systems, and interactions. How can you be sure of the outcomes?" Elias smiled. "We cannot be sure, Your Majesty. But humans have learned to manage uncertainty. We anticipate consequences, adapt when things change, and learn from each action. It is not perfection, it is progress. And in a system like this, progress is more valuable than rigidity." A Scifi advisor whispered to another, "He is a human, and yet he speaks with the clarity and vision of 100 generations of planners." Elias ignored the whispers and continued. He traced connections that had been hidden in the map, showing how distant systems could communicate, share resources, and maintain balance. "This system rewards flexibility and cooperation," he said. "It punishes rigidity and short-sightedness. Your people have mastered strength and control. Humans excel at adaptability and perspective. Together, we can achieve more than either alone." The Queen's expression remained unreadable, but her posture shifted. She leaned back slightly, her gaze thoughtful. "And you believe humans can contribute meaningfully without imposing themselves?" "Yes," Elias said firmly. "We offer guidance, creativity, and insight. We do not demand obedience. We show solutions, not force. That is how humans have survived and thrived throughout history." The court murmured again, but this time the tone was different. There was respect. There was recognition. Elias' words were not arrogance, they were confidence grounded in action. He had demonstrated capability, patience, and understanding. He paused, taking a deep breath. "There is one more aspect, Your Majesty. The map is not static. It responds to interaction. Systems influence each other. Decisions here ripple across the galaxy. Humans are capable of seeing these ripples, anticipating consequences, and guiding outcomes toward positive results. That is why our species can be valuable allies, not threats." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "You speak of influence, of guidance, and yet you expect us to trust humans?" Elias smiled faintly. "Trust is earned through understanding and action. Today, I have shown that humans can understand systems others cannot. Tomorrow, we can act responsibly with that understanding. Trust is the natural result of capability combined with responsibility." The room was silent. Even the most skeptical Scifi had to acknowledge the clarity and depth of his reasoning. Elias had not only solved the puzzle, but also revealed a framework for cooperation and growth that was previously unimagined. The queen stood, her presence filling the chamber. "Human," she said, her voice firm but measured, "you have done something remarkable. Not merely solving a puzzle that confounded my people for centuries, but revealing a way of thinking, a perspective I had not considered. Perhaps humanity is indeed capable of more than I have allowed." Elias bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "It is all we seek, Your Majesty, a chance to contribute, to learn, and to show the value of our perspective." The queen studied him, then gestured toward the floating map. "Guide us. Show my people how to use this knowledge wisely. Teach us your methods. If humans can provide insight without arrogance or destruction, then perhaps the galaxy can benefit from our cooperation." Elias nodded. "I will do so, Your Majesty. Together we can ensure that knowledge, resources, and civilizations grow without conflict. That is the promise of this system." As he spoke, the court watched intently. The Scifi, who had long relied on strict hierarchy and control, were witnessing a human demonstrate leadership, insight, and collaboration without force. It was an unfamiliar sight, but one they could not ignore. Elias began tracing new pathways on the map, showing how resources could be optimized, how communication networks could be strengthened, and how cooperation could prevent scarcity and conflict. Each revelation was met with quiet astonishment from the Scifi observers. The queen's eyes followed every gesture, every connection Elias made. She saw not just the map, but the human's thought process, patient, observant, creative, and adaptable. These were qualities the Scifi respected, even if they had rarely seen them embodied in another species. "You have changed my perception of your species, human," the queen said. "Not through weapons or dominance, but through intelligence, patience, and insight. You have shown that humans are capable of leadership, collaboration, and innovation on a galactic scale." Elias smiled gently. "We have always sought to contribute, Your Majesty. We do not dominate. We adapt, observe, and create solutions. That is our way. If given the opportunity, humans can help build a galaxy where knowledge, cooperation, and progress are valued above conflict." The court murmured approval. The queen's advisors nodded subtly. For the first time, the galaxy's most advanced civilization began to see humans not as primitive, fragile beings, but as partners, capable of contributing in meaningful ways. The queen sat back on her throne, her expression softening. "You have demonstrated what many thought impossible, human. Perhaps it is time to reconsider humanity's place in the galaxy, not as subjects, not as inferiors, but as collaborators, thinkers, and innovators." Elias felt a surge of quiet pride. This was more than a personal victory, it was a victory for all of humanity. The queen's acknowledgement meant that humans could earn a seat at the galactic table, not through conquest or fear, but through creativity, intelligence, and patience. He looked at the map one final time, tracing the paths that connected systems, resources, and civilizations. "This is only the beginning," he said softly. "There is much to learn, much to discover, but together humans and Scifi can achieve more than either could alone." The queen's lips curved into a faint, approving smile. "Very well, human, guide us, teach us. Show us the potential of cooperation between our species. If you succeed, perhaps the galaxy will finally understand the true value of humanity." Elias bowed once more. "It will be my honor, Your Majesty." The court watched in awe as he began explaining the intricate details of the network, demonstrating human insight, adaptability, and creativity. Every gesture, every explanation reinforced the message that humans were not to be underestimated. They were small, yes, but capable of extraordinary understanding, foresight, and collaboration. For the first time, the queen saw humans not as fragile, primitive creatures, but as a species worthy of respect, capable of shaping the future of the galaxy through intelligence and cooperation. And Elias, standing calm and confident before the galaxy's most powerful ruler, smiled. He had revealed the full potential of the puzzle, and in doing so, he had shown that humanity could be a force for understanding, progress, and unity. The revelation was complete. Humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer defined by fear or weakness. It was defined by ingenuity, patience, and the ability to see what others could not. The queen regarded him with respect, the court with awe, and the galaxy with new possibilities. Elias had done more than solve a puzzle. He had changed the way an entire civilization thought about humanity. And for the first time, the galaxy understood the truth. Humans were capable of greatness.